Hello to all my fans, all my 4 subscribers. Today we're talking about the 7-meter long or 23 feet freshwater fish known as the Chinese paddlefish that went extinct in 2021, just 4 years ago. So this was a very big fish, right, that went extinct pretty recently in 2021 at 23 feet or 7 meters long. That's the length of 2 pickup trucks back to back. And probably weighing as much as one. This thing's got to be at least 2,000 pounds. So we got a freshwater fish that went extinct in China. That was the length of 2 pickup trucks. And nobody knows about it. It cannot survive overconsumption and the dredging of sand to build mega dams in the Yangtze and Yellow River Basin in China, where the fish was found. Now we all know that China has the biggest dams in the world. And I've had the chance to visit the biggest one, which is called the Three Gorges Dam, or in Chinese it's the Sanshaba. I actually took a small ferry through the lock systems of the dam, which is basically a ship ladder, right? The gates close and then the water raises or lowers, and then you go into the next lock, and then the water's raised or lowered depending on if you're going up and down. We took a ferry through the lock systems, and I'm just trying to describe how massive these dams are, right? A small ferry can go through the locks. These hydroelectric dams provide clean energy for hundreds of millions of people, but at what cost? I believe China is currently building an even bigger dam, I think near Xinjiang, and if we don't take action now to conserve and protect our biodiversity, it may be too late, right? Just like for this paddlefish, it was too late. The Chinese sturgeon, which is another fish, growing up to 6 meters or 16.4 feet, is now critically endangered. It's about to go extinct. Both the Chinese sturgeon and the paddlefish are related, having been around since the time of dinosaurs, surviving freshwater plesiosaurs, other dinosaurs, pterosaurs, which are actually reptiles, I think, and other scary marine reptiles. Well, it wouldn't be marine, they would be freshwater reptiles, right? Only to be taken out by megadams and hungry fishermen, which is sad. Survive all of these ice age monsters and Jurassic, Triassic sea serpents, just to be taken out by fishermen and the dredging of sand to build dams, and the dam itself. I can see a poor Chinese fisherman catching a paddlefish way below the acceptable size, which is none, because it's critically endangered. You're not supposed to capture it. And I can see a Chinese fisherman, a poor Chinese fisherman, catching it and still taking it home to feed his family. A small paddlefish, maybe one this big, a baby, right? He's still going to take it home, most likely. I mean, if he's uneducated, hungry, and poor, with no other incentives for conservation, right? How many fish and wildlife rangers are going to be present in China, right? We got the population, like 2 billion people? How are you going to enforce that? They have no incentives for conservation. So what do we expect him to do? So all those David Attenborough BBC wildlife documentaries about nature, and especially about the ones about the Amazon River Basin, and how it holds the world's largest freshwater fish, the arapaima, growing up to 3 meters long or 10 feet long. And it says that the largest freshwater fish is the arapaima at 3 meters or 10 feet long. Well, that's simply incorrect, right? As you now know. Even the Chinese sturgeon at 6 meters long, or 16.4 feet, is twice the length of the arapaima, right? Which is only 3 meters. The Chinese sturgeon is 6 meters. Now the paddlefish at 7 meters, or 23 feet, which is a whole meter longer than the largest sturgeon found in China, outclasses the arapaima by more than a factor of 2, more than twice as long as the arapaima in terms of length. So for all the BBC documentaries filmed before 2021, which is when the Chinese paddlefish went extinct, saying that the arapaima is the world's largest freshwater fish is simply false. Even now, the title of the world's largest freshwater fish should belong to the Chinese sturgeon, right? And I didn't fact check this, but I'm pretty sure the North American sturgeon is a pretty hefty size too. I'm not sure if it's bigger than the arapaima, but I wouldn't be surprised. Those things are huge, right? We also have the North American paddlefish, which is still alive, and we gotta conserve that too. So now I can see why the BBC is doing this. Now I can see why the BBC is doing this. Firstly, it may be hard to get paperwork sorted to film in China, right? It may not be so easy to film in China, especially something about a sensitive topic and critically endangered species. And second, even before 2021, they simply would not have found the fish, right? You got 1 or 2 left. You're not gonna in the murky waters of the Yangtze River, the Yellow River, like you're not gonna find this fish. It's mud. It's silted water. Especially a 7-meter one. 7-meter one, right? As the large ones have most likely been harvested. That's what people think, right? Even before 2021, we weren't sure if this fish was actually there. It was critically endangered, but perhaps it was already extinct by then. So how come no one knows about this fish? You certainly didn't, did you? I didn't know about it till it popped up in my news feed, on social media, whatever, in 2021, saying it's now extinct. I remember that day, I showed my dad this article, and I'm like, yo, Dad, there's this 23 foot long fish in China that just went extinct, and he knew nothing about it. He was pretty sad, right? We're fishermen. We're not fishermen, we fish. In fact, every time I bring up this fish, including with Chinese people, nobody has a clue about it. Nobody's ever heard about it. Including my dad, right? Who loves to fish, and he is from China. In fact, I bet 99% of China's population right now have never heard of it. It's already extinct. This amazing fish is already extinct, and we still don't know about it. Well, if people knew this 7-meter long majestic fish existed, it would pose a threat to the construction of China's mega dams. It provides a lot of energy for people, right? Why am I talking about this fish? First of all, it's freaking wicked. But more importantly, it goes to show that a species we never even knew existed are going extinct. Right under our very noses. And I'll just add this part. I didn't write it down, but all the time, man. All the time, right? I'm talking about these big monster fish, river monsters. But what about all the small amphibians and invertebrates that we never discovered? Not because of pollution, whatever, changing sea temperatures, just vanish. And we never even classified it. The stellar sea cow, the world's largest sirenian, which is like an ocean mammal, I think, 10 meters long, over 11,000 kilograms, or 11 tons. So imagine a 10-meter long manatee. That's what it would have looked like. It was a giant manatee in northern Canada, the Arctic, whatever, the Baltic. 10-meter long manatee went extinct in 1768, just 25 years after being discovered. And yes, we killed them all. We hunted them all to death for the blubber or whatever, just like we hunt whales to light our lamps, to make perfume. The great auk, a 75-meter tall penguin-like bird, was hunted to extinction in 1844. That's a pretty big bird, 75 centimeters tall, looked like a penguin. We have nothing like it, you know? Well, we have an auk now, but it's small. The great aurochs, not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, the great aurochs of Europe, ancestor of domestic cattle, these mastiff behemoths standing at 180 centimeters. That's almost 6 feet tall, right? I'm 6'4". This thing's almost my height, but at the shoulder. This thing was my height at the shoulder. Imagine the head and then the horns, right? It had massive horns like a longhorn. In fact, right, some of their DNA might be locked inside domestic cattle and longhorn. Something clone for Pleistocene Park, Siberia. These it went extinct because of us around 500 years ago. That's pretty recently too, right? Just like the auk, these things went extinct pretty recently, 500 years ago. The moa, an ostrich-like flightless bird native to New Zealand, standing at 3 meters tall, or 10 feet tall. That's twice the height of a short person. Weighing 250 kilograms, this flightless bird, 250 kilos or 550 pounds, went extinct by the end of the 17th century. That was very recently. That went extinct during the middle of Tartaria. After the Maori ate them all, right? They were easy to hunt. Throw a spear at it, throw some rocks at it, right? It can only run in the jungles of what? New Zealand. They ate them all. That thing was a dinosaur, right? That thing was a herbivorous dinosaur. Imagine riding it. I just like to imagine us with these animals, right? You've seen people ride ostriches. Tiny compared to these birds. Half the size. The Haast eagle, also found in New Zealand, with a over 10-foot wingspan. Its wingspan was over 10 feet. Living in New Zealand, this raptor solely hunted the giant moa, which I just mentioned, these giant flightless birds. This eagle hunted the moa, a 3-meter tall, 550-pound bird. This eagle hunted it, this raptor eagle. It's another dinosaur, guys. You know, it obviously went extinct since its primary food source was the moa, right? It swooped down, grab the back of the moa's neck, choke it to death. Went extinct along with its food source during the same time. Because the moa was gone, right? It disappeared too. The list goes on, guys, and this will be a later video, right? I'm going to talk about these extinct megafauna. That went extinct pretty recently. I'm talking about within the past 500 years. You know, your great-grandparents. Or it wouldn't be your great-grand, it would be your great-great-great-great-grandparents, you know, would have been walking with these animals. Walking with these giants, right? Notice how I mentioned big animals or megafauna and not the dodo or passenger pigeon. Smaller extinct, more recently extinct animals, right? The dodo and the passenger pigeon. We killed them all, right? There used to be billions of passenger pigeons flying across North America, these beautiful birds, purple, blue, red, all sorts of colors, and we shot them all. And they're extinct now. The skies used to be covered with this bird. It used to be the most common bird in the world, in North America, right? It would blot out the sun. It's extinct now. This is because I want to illustrate to you what I refer to as the domestication of wildlife, or the watering down of biodiversity. I'm not talking about domesticating like our own animals. I'm talking about our presence on this earth naturally domesticating everything around us, right? Because of the way we hunt, right? The way we build our infrastructure and take over nature. It leads to extinction. Did you know that the last mammoths on Rango Island went extinct only around 4,000 years ago? So our ancestors would have been walking with mammoths because, prior to 4,000 years, there were more mammoths in Europe, whatever, North America. But they were just dwarf and inbred versions of their Ice Age relatives. So these mammoths on Rango Island, they were all inbred because they lived on an island. They went through the islandification species, whatever it's called, and they became smaller. Instead of becoming bigger, like some island species, they became smaller and more inbred. It wasn't a really good condition for them. But 4,000 years ago, that's not too long ago, right? We like to think of the Ice Age, prior to the youngest drier cataclysm, around 12,000 years ago. That's the Ice Age. But these Ice Age, a lot of these megafauna survived for a bit, right? Like this mammoth. This is because with human nature, so I'm talking about this domestication of wildlife and the watering down of biodiversity. This is because human nature. This is because of human nature and the way we hunt animals, the way we hunt these animals. It's always the giants that perish first, both within a species and the entire species sometimes. So what do I mean by this? Well, poachers and hunters don't just go for any elephant, right? In the safari expedition back in the 1800s, right, where we're shooting all these massive elephants, we're not shooting any elephants, right? Those hunters don't just go for any elephant, not the females, not the babies, which is good. But what's bad is that they don't go for any elephant. They go for the biggest males, right? The tallest, biggest males, or you can call them the alpha males, who often have the biggest tusks. The biggest tusks would probably belong to the biggest males with the most testosterone. That's how they grow their tusks. We kill the ones with the biggest tusks. That's the ones they go for. Trophy hunting, right? The big tuskers. So we are discriminately hunting elephants with big tusks to ship to China, the ivory trade. It's sad. Over time, we are shrinking their gene pools, taking out the big alpha male tuskers, leaving behind beta males with small tusks. And over time, right? Now when you watch National Geographic, BBC documentaries, all you see those elephants and stuff. It's not the same elephants as the 1800s or, before that. The big tuskers are gone. Same with lions. We hunted the big Barbary lions with huge black manes. Now all we have left are ones with less impressive stature and lighter manes, right? Some say we still have the Barbary lion. Yeah, but they don't look the same as the Barbary lions from before. They don't have as thick as black manes, and their statures I assume is probably smaller too, because those are the alpha males that produce that jet black mane. That's testosterone. And we had the lions of Savile that killed and ate people, or the British construction, the Indian, when they're building the railway, the lions of Savile were fearsome and they hunted people. They were not afraid of people, and we shot them all, right? This goes for all animals. As a result of trophy hunting, we are taking out the big moose with big racks. We've extradited the 6-foot Timberland rattlesnake from Ontario because farmers were scared of them. As a result of their extradition, the Timberland rattlesnake, which which so extradition means it's extinct from this region. It's extinct in Ontario. It's extradited from Ontario. We now have a rodent problem, as these snakes ate rodents, such as field mice. Because of the overabundance of rodents, Lyme disease is everywhere here in Ontario. I'm sure many places too in North America. Poisoning our natural food sources, such as white-tailed deer and moose now. Biodiversity is so important in the ecosystem, with each species relying on one another to maintain a healthy system. You cannot just simply extradite one species and take out one species and expect the ecosystem to function properly, like how they're releasing mosquitoes, males that can't breed or whatever, and we want to get rid of mosquitoes. We do not fully understand the butterfly effect of that, the ecological consequences of getting rid of mosquitoes. You know how many animals prey on mosquitoes? You can't do that. Even if it's a 6-foot-long rattlesnake that the settlers feared because they were religious. And in the Bible and all religions, snakes are evil, right? But really, they keep us alive. They're important. Everything is important. In fact, these snakes are afraid of us and do not attack unless it's startled, which is hard to do because its tail is literally a built-in warning system. It's a rattlesnake. It rattles when you're around it to scare you away because it's not trying to hunt you. So the next time you see a wild moose or an elephant on TV and you want to give humanity a pat on the back for keeping these megafauna alive, just know that you are seeing a domesticated or a watered down version of the animal. It's not even the same animal. It's the ones we didn't want to kill. Those are the ones that passed on its genes. It's a smaller elephant with smaller tusks. It's a smaller lion with a weaker mane. Just look at wolves. They domesticate themselves by living amongst us. A wolf and your dog has the same DNA, just tweaked. Even in nature, wolves are shrinking and becoming coy wolves, breeding with coyotes because they're coming into human areas just like coyotes. They're kind of domesticating themselves just like dogs did, except now they're breeding with coyotes and we barely got wolves left. I noticed a lot of the large animals I mentioned perished during Tartaria, which is around 1600 to 1800 years ago. That's very interesting, right? I've been talking about giants of Tartaria, giant humans. Everything is connected. We all share this world, and every small action has larger repercussions. That's something for you guys to think about. That's it for this video. I thought it was suitable to talk about these giant animals because I've been talking about giants, right? And these animals went extinct pretty recently, and I bet many of you, unless you're you're into animals and stuff, did you know that these things existed? An 11-meter long manatee. This herbivore animal. You could probably swim up to it and pet it. Except, when we're hunting them to extinction, I'm sure they knew, I gotta avoid those boats, those human ships, man. Those whalers will kill us. It's real sad. Thank you for listening, guys. I'm out.